So yesterday afternoon I moved the pigs out of this half-acre paddock of cover crops where I fed them, and I moved them into this quarter-acre paddock of cover crops where I fed them. They were in this other paddock over here for 6 days, and I'm planning on keeping them here in this new paddock for 6 or 7 days as well. I'm Rob from Dowdle Family Farms, and I'm on a mission to grow more of our livestock feed for our pigs on our farm ourselves. Let's take a look at what the other older cover crop field looks like after the pigs grazed it, and let's talk about why we're changing things up. So this is the field after the pigs grazed it. They either grazed or knocked down, I'm guessing about half or maybe even 75% of the forage, but really only about a third of the forage I think that they actually ate. You can see right here, this is that area where Midnight and then the Berkshire sows were learning to eat the chicory. They grazed the chicory quite well. There's not a whole lot of the chicory in this paddock, but what's there they did eat pretty close to the ground. They did not root any of this material up. I'm pretty pleased with that. There are a couple areas where they tried to get down into the ground and cool off, but that's mostly under that tree line, which is where the edge of their paddock was. There's still some pretty decent pig forage in this paddock for them. You can tell that there are still some cowpeas left. The sorghum sudangrass and the hybrid pearl millet, both of those grasses are still standing, and they're standing fairly tall. However, when you look at the cowpea plants, you can tell where they grazed it off, and it's starting to regrow. I did not want to leave the pigs in this paddock any longer than 7 days, because if they kept grazing some of the cowpeas and other stuff, I didn't want them to root it up, and I want to see if I can get this stuff to regrow fairly well. The first thing they did is they devoured the buckwheat. They ate most of the buckwheat within 3 or 4 days. The buckwheat was in a flowering stage. Some toward that end over there was in a seeding stage, hard seed, but really they devoured the buckwheat first. You can still see a few plants of the buckwheat like that right there, and of course there's some pigweed or spiny amaranth, whatever you want to call it, that the pigs haven't messed with. It's not part of the cover crop. It's just growing up where I mowed on those tests. But all that to say, the pigs did a fairly decent job. I could keep the pigs in here longer, but really I've got better forages elsewhere, so what I plan on doing with this section is mowing it. I may mow some of it and take it to pigs that are in the woods, some of our feeder pigs, so that they get some better forage. Most of it I'll probably mow and leave it laying on the ground here. But by mowing this sorghum sudangrass and all that's here, it will regrow and the roots will penetrate much deeper into the soil profile. Sorghum sudangrass is just phenomenal in terms of root regrowth after it's grazed or mown. It performs really, really well. So let's go take a look at the other paddock and see what it looks like. So in the 16 hours that the pigs have been here, you can tell that they've already trampled so much of this forage, which is fine. We're trying to feed soil and feed the pigs in the process, so much of this stuff is going to be trampled into the ground, create a mulch, and that's okay. There are two things different about this paddock compared to where the pigs were. Both paddocks have the same cover crop mix. The soil is in really good shape. They've had no additional fertilizers or anything, but that extra wheat has allowed much more of the buckwheat seed to form hard seed and to go on and provide some nutrition for the pigs. So the pigs primarily are interested in getting the grain off of the buckwheat more than they are anything else, which is okay. The other thing is this field is about 1.5 feet taller of growth than the other field when I turn the pigs in here. And I don't know if you can tell, but Ferdinand over here is grazing on the buckwheat seed. But if you've noticed, much of this forage stands a foot over his back. Some of it stands 2 feet over his back. And he is a tall, long boar. His size here, until you see him compared to the other pigs, his size looks really, really small. But this forage is just so much taller and so much thicker than when we turn the pigs into the other paddock, and that's just 6 days worth of growth in good soil with some good soil moisture. The combination of the extra week for the buckwheat to turn to seed and for the forage to grow taller has meant that there's a lot more forage out here. But I turned the pigs out here in a smaller 1/4 acre paddock for one very simple reason. In that paddock up there where I had the pigs for the very first time, the thing that I was trying to do is figure out how long I could put the pigs in there and still give them plenty of feed where I did not have to supplement grain. And I gave them less than 50 pounds of grain total for the entire week. In fact, the only grain that I've given them in the last 5 days is about 15 pounds of grain for these 6 pigs when I moved them into this paddock so that I could keep them there while I set up the electric fence. So all that to say, what I want to do is I want them to not only eat the grain, but I want them to eat more of this sorghum sudangrass and more of the cowpeas. I want them to have a shorter period of time that they're eating the less nutritious forages, and so that means I'd rather them eat the buckwheat for 3 or 4, 5 days, and then 2 or 3 days worth of cowpeas and sorghum sudangrass, rather than just allowing them to go through the paddock and eat for a week the less nutritious forages and lose some weight in the process. I hope you enjoyed this brief video. The main purpose of reducing this paddock size is to maximize the different types of forages that the pigs are eating, and also to take advantage of most of the other forages on this field. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day and take care.